Joining us now, staff writer with The Atlantic and author of Autocracy, Inc., The Dictators Who Want to Run the World, Anne Applebaum. And it's really good to be here with you. I guess the question I have that's been bugging me, there was a reason why Europe started to disarm itself. It got very tense, very angry, led to a couple of pretty big fights that we all got involved in. They've been leaning heavily on us now for the past 70, 80 years. What sort of world are we walking into when Europe starts to rearm, the Western nations start to rearm, and they start to take a more forceful position without the United States?
You're really right to point to the big picture, because this is really something extraordinary that's happening. 80 years of a world in which America helped create zones of prosperity and safety in Europe as well as Asia, to the benefit of the United States, to the benefit of U.S. companies, to the benefit of U.S. culture, and to the benefit of everybody involved, actually, is now coming to an end. President Trump has indicated that he, in many different ways, that he doesn't feel aligned with Europe. He doesn't see the United States as the leader of the democratic world. He doesn't need those kinds of alliances. He's not planning on using them in elsewhere in the world as American presidents did in the past. And that is leading Europeans to redefine who they are and what they want to be. And yes, there will be more defense spending. There will be conversations. I mean, I don't want to be apocalyptic, but there'll be certainly conversations among U.S. allies in Europe and Asia about nuclear weapons. Do we need them now? If the U.S. nuclear umbrella is no longer guaranteed, a system that was created to avoid war, to push away war, as I said, to create prosperity, is now going to be slowly replaced with something very different. And I'm not sure that Americans are going to like it.
Maybe this is a dumb question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Just looking at the way Donald Trump talks about the world and what he's wanted to do since he's come back to office. He wants to take Greenland. He wants Canada to be the 51st state. He wants to retake the Panama Canal, taking over Gaza. He's cozying up toward Vladimir Putin again, as Putin wants to expand his territory. He also has an affinity for MBS. It seems like maybe there's some affinity there, although it's kind of unclear, toward Xi Jinping. Is this somebody who has intentions of creating a new world order that looks more like the empire system of the past? Is that just taking a leap too far?
All I can say is, if that's what if he's not doing that, then he's sounding a lot like it. I mean, you're absolutely right. He speaks about other countries, other sovereign countries, as if they were fake states or failed states. He talks about other territory that's not part of the United States as if it should be his, as if it should be somehow handed over without question. He's acting as if borders don't matter. He's aligning himself with other dictators who have also treated their neighbors poorly and treated their own populations poorly. Russia is a repressive state in which there is no freedom of speech, in which opposition leaders are murdered. Is that the kind of state that the United States wants to resemble? Is that the leader? Is Putin the leader that the United American president admires and whose language he imitates? I'm wondering whether Americans are going to be happy that their country is no longer seen as a democracy around the world, or seen as a country that promotes stability, and safety and prosperity, and whether they're going to be happy with an America aligned with aggressive, extortionate dictatorships. It's a very, very big change.
Can we linger on that? When you say Americans aren't going to be happy with that change, what is it going to look like for us? And I know you've written also about DOGE. I wonder, this DOGE experience and what Elon Musk is trying to do to the federal government, does that fold into this new vision of how this country, aligned with these other authoritarian governments, might look in the future, or they might be pushing us toward?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I was listening to your last segment, actually, and I was listening to people talk about why Musk is using these particular kinds of tactics. I mean, it seems very clear to me that his intention is not to create government efficiency. Then why would he be firing random people? He might be firing good people. His intention is to change the nature of the civil service so that civil servants become loyalists, so they pass purity tests, so that they're afraid to have their own views. They respond only to the whim of the leader. I mean, that does sound like political systems that to most Americans would be pretty unfamiliar. So it feels like both domestically and internationally, they're seeking to change the nature of who we are, who we have been, at least for the last 80 years. And I think as Americans begin to understand that the nature of their country, the definition of who we are, is becoming something different, they might be very surprised.
Do you think that there is a chance for Emmanuel Macron, for Keir Starmer, for Western leaders to convince Donald Trump to stick by them? We saw Emmanuel Macron trying to give what is, I mean, probably a masterclass, all things considered, in somebody who is not aligned with Donald Trump, trying to flatter his way into alignment, trying to pretend like they're the best of friends and then gently push back where he needed to. Do you see that as having any runway?
It's hard to know for them to know what to do because flattery makes you look idiotic, and I don't think President Trump really respects it. And anger doesn't have any impact either. That's not successful. I mean, I think what's gradually going to happen is that we will see European leaders beginning to make their own path and make decisions that may not be beneficial to the United States, but decisions about trade and decisions about security that will lead them in a different direction. I mean, we're still in the very beginning of this change, this big sea change, and maybe it's not going to go very well, and maybe it'll hit a roadblock pretty soon, and the change won't be as dramatic as it looks right now. But you can already hear people in Europe and Asia and other American allies around the world, but also others who have admired the United States for what it was in the past, beginning to say, we need something different now. And so for the moment, they'll continue talking to Trump and doing their best. I mean, you can't really ask them to do anything else. But in the future, you might hear different kinds of voices.